Welcome to Petty and Profound. Today, we're going to talk about the 1990 movie Mr. Destiny. What works, what doesn't, and what it might be saying underneath the surface. So today, Morgan and I, this is my brother Morgan,
Hey,
and my name is Caitlin, and we're going to talk about Mr. Destiny, that classic of early 90 film, right?
yeah, we're gonna analyze the film and then also just do sort of casual over analyzing like we like to do.
Plot summary. Larry Burroughs is a 35-year-old man who believes his life would have been better if he hadn't struck out during a pivotal high school baseball game. On his birthday, after a series of misadventures, he stumbles into a mysterious bar where the bartender, Mike, offers him a special cocktail that transports him to an alternate reality. In this new life, Larry hit the game-winning home run, leading to a successful career and marriage to his boss's daughter. However, he soon realizes that this seemingly perfect life comes with its own set of problems, including strained relationships and unforeseen consequences. Ultimately, Larry learns to appreciate his original life and the choices that shaped it.
That's a good summary. I think that's solid.
Yeah. What would you like to discuss first? I'll let you take the floor here.
I guess the first thing I want to start with is I think it's weird that the key moment happens when he's 15. Which, if you think about it, you're freshman in high school, and in the context of organized sports, if there's a game-winning shot or a
It's probably your
game-winning
senior year or
touchdown,
your junior year,
usually,
right?
yeah, usually it's an upperclassman.
That's when the scouts are out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's not like he really let anyone down. He wasn't like the goalie in hockey, and it wasn't like 0-0, and he let the goal in. I mean, I'm pretty sure the scoreboard was 3-2, so they were down one, and they needed one to tie for I
Mm.
think extra innings, and I think they needed two to win. So I thought, kind of coming out of the gates, I'm like, this kid's 15. Like it might be a little too much pressure to put on him, and also like I feel like the main character, the Jim Belushi character, might be, I don't know, putting too much weight on that moment. I mean, very rarely is one sort of positive moment, hitting a specific home run, enough to sort of be a difference maker. It's not like he was an aspiring professional athlete. I don't think he even played college. So, as an athlete, he wasn't, it didn't change it. It's not like he was averaging 40 home runs a year or anything like that. It was kind of a blip. So I think it's weird and a little bit interesting that he's pinpointed this particular moment, freshman year of his high school, as being the game changer. So it's an interesting setup.
What I think is interesting is, like, first of all, the relationship with his wife is fascinating to me, and I feel like almost one third, if not more, of this relationship, this movie, is an exploration of his relationship with his wife, because I like the before and after. Like, who is his wife when he's married to her? She seems a little artsier. She's a little more, I don't know, easygoing, happy, ebullient. But when in his new life, where he's the president of the company, ironically, they're both more successful without each other. I thought
Yeah.
that was really funny. Like, she's doing really well in her career. She's pursuing her passions, and actually, like, at least economically and in the company, her role there, she's better off without him, at least in that vein. And so I thought that was really fascinating. And also, she represents kind of a moral compass for him in this movie. And so he's aghast to find out not only is she married to somebody else and like working at the company, she actually dislikes him actively. She
Yeah.
doesn't like the person who he is.
Viscerally. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And again, so it's like, not only do you not love me, you're not my wife, but you hate me. And so that immediately shifts the entire mission of this fantasy life. He shuts it all down, and he tries to like redeem himself, like get her back, but like redeem himself to her.
Right.
So I thought that's a really fascinating role. But like what do you do when you get transported to a different version of your life where you weren't in your spouse's world and they're better off without you. Like, that's a moral
A little
conundrum,
bit of a
right?
letdown, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I got to be honest, I was distracted by the fact that I remember as a kid watching the movie and not being familiar with his wife character. But now, the second I saw her, I was like, Sarah
Terminator?
Connor, Terminator. I was like, he's married to the
Yeah.
Terminator lady. So every time I saw her, that's all I could think about. It was kind of, it made me giggle each time.
That's so funny. All right, I'm going to be looking for something else I want to point out, but do you have any other things you want to share, any other points before I dig
Well,
into another
I
tangent?
mean, I think the thing we definitely need to hit before we go any further is what's the theme, or sort of what's the moral of the story. I think the probably the easiest one is the name of the beverage that he takes to sort of do the
Spilled
ultimate
milk.
is the spilled milk. So the obvious
Mm-hmm.
conclusion is don't cry over spilled milk.
Mm.
Another obvious one is be happy with what you have.
Mm-hmm.
um, or slight shift. Be happy with who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Accept yourself. I'm gonna add one more. That's another slight shift, and that's don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of you sometimes hear about that in self-help books. You sometimes read about that in personal finance, and then also you see it sometimes with like ancient philosophers. The golden mean. They didn't really believe in extremes. Of anything. They kind of somewhere in the middle. Keep it nice, short and sweet. Because if you focus too much on perfection, then it can make you unhappy. It can stymie incremental progress. It can cause you to procrastinate and really just sort of be less effective because you're struggling to find a perfect thing when really all you need is good enough. Some examples of this, or at least some things they plant in the film about his identity anyway, are in both his original life and in his
He
new
loves
life.
cars.
What's
He loves
that?
cars. He loves cars.
That's my third one. So my
Mm.
first one is cold brewski, no glass. So he's the
Yes.
same person.
Mm-hmm.
What doesn't matter which life. He likes drinking the same stuff. Even when they try to serve him the fancy stuff, he doesn't like it. He wants his
Mm-hmm.
cold beer, no
He's his,
glass.
he's the everyman.
He's the
He doesn't fit
everyman.
into the snobby upper class.
Yeah, and he wants plain coffee. Another theme throughout the whole thing. He just wants a plain coffee. At the beginning, you
Mm-hmm.
see him like they're out of coffee symbolism. And he gets to his office. He's eating coffee grounds because he needs the caffeine. And then even in his fancy life, it's cappuccino. And apparently,
Yeah.
he's never had cappuccino because this is pre-Starbucks. And he's just out of sorts, and all he wants is his plain coffee. And then the one you brought up is the model cars, which he loves building his model cars in his original life, and then when he goes to the fancy life, he still
He just
prefers his
buys them.
model car. And then his wife says, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, it's a Mercedes Goldwing." She's like, "I know you have one in the garage," and he says, "Yeah, but I like them smaller."
Okay. So I was just like jamming on the internet, looking at random things, and so some random thoughts. Well, first I wanted to talk about how rich he seemed. Like I actually asked ChatGPT to calculate what that like net worth would
Okay,
be today. So estimated for 1990s, 8 million to 14 million. So factoring in inflation, that's equivalent to 18 million to 32 million today. Um, but oh yeah, this is what it said. Like Larry's dream didn't just give him a nicer house; it gave generational wealth vibes. And so then I had to calculate like estimates of the mansion. Uh, his executive salary 500 to 750K. So yeah, he was doing really well there. But it seemed a little bit more lavish, like the rich mahogany vibes, the huge fireplace, and the strangely like British vibe children with
sure,
the hard boiled eggs.
right. So I think that's a good point. The British vibes. I'm gonna go back to in a second, but I wanna step in real quick because I think your financial calculation, your Chat GPT calculation, might be off by a little
I
bit.
just asked it to do the
No, no.
financials for me.
I used a different AI to address a different question,
Ah,
and I had a series of questions based on that.
oh,
So
okay.
I don't use ChatGPT. I like Perplexity, but
Okay.
so the first question I'm going to ask you is, let's just focus on the home. So the
Uh-huh.
home, when do you think that was built? And I'll give you the answers to all these, or at least the Perplexity
The
answer.
outside looks way newer than the inside. It looks like a 80s outside house. Inside, it looks like it was 1890s or like the Gilded Age,
So
maybe like the early 1900s.
So
Vanderbilt.
you nailed it at the very last. It's from the Gilded Age. It was built in 1889 through 1895. So you nailed it. Now for the harder questions.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you all these, and I'm going to write them down, and then I'll tell you what the actual answers are. How many bedrooms do you think are in the house?
6 to 8
Okay. How many bathrooms?
more. 10 to 12.
Okay. Square footage.
8,000.
Okay. Um, acreage. Acreage.
Less acreage. I'm gonna say 7 acres.
Okay.
Probably even less. It's probably nothing, but let's just.
All right. Now the final one. How many fireplaces?
Lots of fireplaces. 5, 6.
6. Okay. All right. So it was built in the Gilded Age. There are 35 bedrooms. You said there were 8 bedrooms. You guessed 10 to 12 bathrooms. There are 43 bathrooms.
Wow, wow.
I asked guess square footage. You guessed 8,000.
Well, it's gonna be
Now
like 12, 20,000.
you're not even close.
Oh,
135,000 square feet in livable space,
come
and
on.
175,000
They
square
jumped the
feet.
shark. They jumped the shark. It's a
And
castle for crying out loud.
and then, well, I'll explain why in a second. So the acres, you guessed 7. There's 8,000 acres, and
Like a
you
small
guessed
city. It's a small
so you
small
you
village.
guessed 6 fireplaces. There's
6,000
65.
fire.
There's 65 fireplaces. And I didn't ask you to guess, but there's 250 rooms
That's
in the house. So the the problem is it was this is the Biltmore estate,
oh, it's a
built
hotel.
by George Vanderbilt II. You
Yes,
know,
yeah, I said Vanderbilt.
one of the famous robber barons, one of the most famous robber barons of the Gilded Age, and
Of
this is
course,
just coincidentally one of the biggest, if not the biggest, private homes in all of America.
got it.
So it's massive. So like the fact that anyone who didn't also own who wasn't a robber baron, who wasn't John D. Rockefeller or Andrew Carnegie, like there's a select handful of people in the
That
history
is
of
true.
America that could ever have owned
Hmm.
this home, and it's not even
Hmm.
close to realistic. So like but I think it's interesting. I think it's fascinating.
But yeah, I thought that was funny. But then on the flip side of that, it's a really cute, quaint life that I think he totally takes for granted. And I think it's a sign of the times and like the changing dynamics of American work. And like, how many people in his family work at that company? Like his dad's like, I don't know, legit, like putting the boxes on shelves. His wife works there for the union.
It's a company town, and
Yeah.
and all the characters live there, and all the families live there.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
has a
But like,
very small town feel to it.
Yeah, but like it would make sense that he would want to be CEO of that company because it's like king of that
Yeah,
universe.
it's king of that universe. It's the universe he knows.
I thought it was crazy because if you really boil down this movie, he basically just wants to sleep with his boss's wife. Gets kind of uses her, gets his hall pass through like the alternate reality, and then as soon as he gets it out of his system, he just tries to like, okay, get back with his wife, and everything's fine. And I feel like she was used kind of as a character, just a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah, let me get back to that in a second. I mean, one thing that's weird is there's definitely sort of a flavor of divine intervention, both
Mm-hmm.
when like the baseball like flashes. That's obviously something supernatural.
Yeah, he like winces. Yeah.
And then the other thing too is, and hopefully it's eh, not too much of a spoiler, but the age of the bartender, the one who's helping him out, his angel. You know, he's the same age at the baseball game, which you only get to look at the very last scene. He's the same age 35 years later, or however many
Mm-hmm.
years later, a couple decades later. So he hasn't aged a bit. So there's definitely something there. And in terms of how it plays out, like they try to make it seem like a lot of it is material. I think part of it is material wealth that he's pursuing, but I think part of it too is the part you meant, the relationship, or like the one that got away. uh but it's odd, because at least with I, the thing I struggle with is at the beginning of the movie when when he first meets that the one that got away, Cindy Joe, right? And he's sort of stammering. He's stammering. He's aw shucks.
Humana, humana,
Yeah, like he can't hold it together. It's like you're 35. Like I realize you might have had a crush, 2 decades before, but like come on, like that part's it seems like a real stretch, but I think they tried. I think they try to do. I think they try to do it. Because I feel like if it was just fancy cars and a big house, like, there has to be some sort of social angle or relationship angle, or it feels even more hollow. It feels even more cheap, if you will. Just because, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't. It doesn't all make sense. You kind of have to do those sort of like the suspension of disbelief when you're watching it. It also bothers me a little bit that he comes into this alternate universe, like it's always the case, with all this knowledge of how things are supposed to be. So he can't really analyze what this life is, or what when he steps into the shoes of alternate version of him. We have no idea what that version of him is like. We have no idea. We get glimpses. We know he has a
Yes.
mistress. We know he does. We know he plays golf. But like, we really don't know if he's the same person in that life. So it's weird that he's stepping into this life, and we don't really know how close those people actually are. And people keep saying like, "Are you off?" Like, you don't seem like yourself today. I mean, part of it's because he doesn't know how to get around his own house, but part of it too is just because his answers are a little bit off, and his focus, and
Sure. Sure.
it just
Well, I think that's actually part of the story. I think that's part of the story. The point of the movie is he needed to miss the ball because he needed that humbling experience. And so like this is who he became, like the bad version of himself where he's mean to Cliff and he's in like a loveless marriage or a marriage where the woman's just really cold and he doesn't have that warm connection with her like he does his true wife. And he's living like Niles, basically. He's kind of soulless. And it's extended to his dad. His dad is now broken up with his mom. Like, it's like a sickness that spread throughout the family. And so I think in being humbled, missing that ball, and then having his wife be kind to him and like scoop him up like a little broken bird, like that made him like a more empathetic just like it more in line with his softy kind of nature, despite the fact that he just wants his hall pass. But we'll just set that aside. So
What's weird though is, we definitely, as sort of in the passenger seat that we're being taken on this movie, we're definitely supposed to feel that everyone's life is worse under this alternate
yes,
reality. You
that's one
definitely
thing I
get
want
that.
to talk
It's
about.
like his life is worse. His dog's dead. His his wife is married to someone else who may or may not be a nice person. I mean, it sounds like they're hitting some strife. His friend, I don't know if it's Cliff or Clip,
It's
but
Cliff, but
okay.
he's barely holding
Oh,
it
he's
together.
he's he's a mess. And like you said, his dad and his mom are divorced, so there's all these things that
Worse.
seemingly it looks like really it's like a selfish act. So like if he wanted this life, it's a selfish act because all these other things are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought about it deeply and I tried to scratch the surface a little bit. I'm like, but does it really make sense? In the
Mm-hmm.
sense that, like, okay, well, let's take two steps back. Let's put on our modern glasses. It's like, okay, well, they his mom and his dad are divorced. There's a line in the movie, everyone's divorced. Like, everyone's parents are divorced. So it's like, and right around I feel like 1990, a little bit after that, I feel like some of the stigma of divorce was probably coming off. So it's like, is it that big of a deal? And also who's he dating? But Kathy Ireland. I don't know if you noticed that. It's like a supermodel who was really famous
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
'90s. So it's like most
But I
people would
think
be.
that's more symbolic of like the moral decline. It's not even a
I
lady who's very.
know, but again, looking at it from today's perspective, there's a lot of people who are like the
You
dad.
could do worse.
Yeah, yeah,
Dad could do
like yeah.
worse.
So like, and then the second thing is, it's like okay, well, Clip, he has the same job. It's like he can't work a copy machine. His shirt's untucked. But like
He was disheveled.
the only reason he was disheveled. The only reason he was stressed out was because, the Larry, came in and like he saw him messing up the copy machine. But really, like, it seems like he's lonely and disheveled, but like not that big of a difference. And also like, okay, well, if he comes into this life with no knowledge of his past life, I think the dog has this is just a mutt. Like I don't think he's stressed out, driving the car too fast. I don't think he ever hits the dog. So it's like I feel like some of this everything is worse under this path. Everything is worse under this. It feels a little bit forced. I know that's the direction we're supposed to go in, so I go in that direction too. But I'm like, it feels kind of I don't know. It feels kind of forced. And
No,
like
I agree. First of all, it bothers me stories like that. Like it just seems so intellectually lazy that it's
yeah.
just so easy. Like it would be a much more interesting movie if, like, what if the new wife is really nice, or what if his actual wife was actually really, or his previous wife was really happy,
Yeah,
like
thrilled.
achieved
Yeah,
your wildest dreams.
sure.
Like that's morally complicated,
Yeah.
and that tells me
That's a
a
little bit more
cooler story.
interesting.
Yeah,
Not only that, like I feel like Cindy Joe is happy no matter what. I feel like
yeah.
almost everyone at that company has like pretty much the exact same fate. Like I feel like there's not that much switching between the alternate realities. Really, it's just Larry and a couple slight tweaks here and there. It's not as big as they want you to feel. Like they want you to feel
Mhm.
it's night and day, darkness versus light. This is we definitely picked the right path for you, Larry. Like, don't second guess us. Um,
Hmm.
but anyway, I find it interesting.
Interesting. So, what were your memories of this movie as a kid? And like, did you like it as much as I did? Like, obviously, I don't know what you would have picked had you picked the first three, but like, does that set like just if that was like our introduction to film in northeastern Kansas in the late '80s, early '90s, when we didn't even have cable yet? We didn't have cable
Yeah,
not until we moved. Mm-mm.
I think I liked it, and I liked sort of like the concept of choice versus fate versus, like, are these decisions you make, or, can you make your own fate, or yeah, I think I liked it. Like, I liked the idea that there were all these paths. There were all these paths you could
Multiverse.
select. Yeah, that you could select, or maybe are selected for you. I think I liked that. Um, I think now, when I look back, I'm just reminded by, you know, all the other things and all the other movies people are famous for. Like, when I looked at the cast, I was like, oh, Michael Caine,
Yes.
like The Dark Knight, Courtney Cox, Friends, and I was just
Hmm.
like for whatever reason, like all the offshoots, sort of like the cultural relevance offshoots, hit me
Yes.
more than the actual
Yes.
story. But obviously, when I watched it the first time as a kid, the story resonated me more. Also, I kind of like, this kind of goes back to the point I had about uh, you know be comfortable with who you are, but sort of like the house with like the mud, the mud yard with no driveway. Like, I feel like that's a very relatable thing for an adult, but
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
necessarily for a kid. Because, like, right now, if someone said, "Hey, I have a house, but there's no driveway, it's just a bunch of wooden boards, and there's no yard," you'll be like, "Great, you have a house," you know.
Yes. That's like that didn't culturally hold up. I'm like, when people can't even afford houses
I
today, and this
know.
guy's complaining that he doesn't have his grass in yet.
Yeah, but
And
like,
you're happily married and like have time for a hobby to put cars together.
and
So
and the other thing too is, at the very beginning, when he and his wife are bickering a little bit, and she's like, "You're mad at me because you paid the contractor." I'm like, "That's a grown up joke. That's not a kid joke. Like, grown ups get that joke." But
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Very
anyway,
funny.
it made me like, that part made me laugh. So, like, it's funny when you rewatch the movie, like, different notes hit you differently.
I was looking at people's comments online about the movie and like just random reviews, and one person said, the film gently critiques the myth of masculine success. And so, like, Larry equates sex with domination, big office, hot wife, financial power, but learns that fulfillment was never about dominance, it was about presence. So I feel like that like subverts masculine success, and not in non-threatening ways. Like, it just explores that, and I think I like. I feel like there are so many movies that come out now that are just a sequel of an action, comic book movie, and it's like I don't think a lot of these questions are asked in like big budget movies anymore, and that's kind of a bummer for me because I don't. I think there would be. I would enjoy it, at least some value to be had in movies that ask that question.
I think it I think it asks some good questions. I feel like it asks them pretty simplistically, though. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think the Larry character is very complicated.
No.
Like, I think he's a
Mm-mm. He's like
really,
a puppy. He likes
yeah,
he wants his toys and yeah.
yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
Oh, I have a question for you.
Mm.
Where do you think this movie was filmed?
Well, I actually didn't. I looked up some facts about the movie, but I didn't see that. But I would guess like Chicago.
It's a good guess. I guessed Illinois or Chicago because it kind of had sort of a Midwestern vibe, and also, the real life husband of Cindy Joe, he played for the Bears, and
Hmm.
everyone seemed,
The Bears.
yeah,
Yeah.
go, yeah, the Bears. So I like that. That's kind of how it felt. It's When I looked it up again using AI, most of it was shot, I think, in North Carolina.
Is
So
that for tax purposes or like because
it
of the
was
season
so I already told you
or the
before,
Biltmore?
the Biltmore was in Asheville, and I think the
That's still
office
North
build,
Carolina.
I think North Carolina, and I think the office building, I think, was an R.J. Reynolds building, and I think the opposing baseball team was RJR High School.
Okay, it's funny that you mentioned Chicago because I looked up the Belushis and
Oh
they're
yeah,
from like the Chicago suburbs. And of course, this is like when you read up about any movie, it's like a series of rabbit holes. And so I of course got into the Belushi family rabbit hole, which immediately leads one to John Belushi.
John Belushi.
The older brother, so he was the original Success.
Blues
so he
Brothers.
was about 5 years older.
Blues Brothers.
Yes.
Animal House.
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Like the OG cast.
Yeah.
So, and that signature Animal House shirt that John Belushi wore, he got when he visited his younger brother, Jim, at college. So.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting, like, so obviously John's success probably helps his brother break through since he was younger and, still coming of age when his brother was really tapping in. But it's just interesting when you gotta dig in. And then, of course, Linda Hamilton and her whole illustrious background. This was such a, no one remembers this movie. If you look at any, summaries of these top actors, no one mentions Mr. Destiny. It's not, it does not make the short list, it does not make the long list. It's you have to search for it, which again, I feel is perfect for what I'm wanting to talk about. So, do you know how much or what the budget was, and do you know what the gross was?
$5 million.
5 million?
Budget. High or low?
Higher.
20.
Yes.
And then that's what it cost, or that's what it grossed?
It just says that budget, 20 million.
Okay, and then I'm guessing
Okay,
gross.
what do you think the box office gross was?
50?
15.4.
Oh, it was a disappointment.
Oh, I know. Sad. You live and you learn.
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
Well, I have some questions for you. Let me do some.
Okay.
Who was the most interesting character?
I like the wife.
My next question is, who's the least explored character?
Oh, gosh. Renee Russo. Least explored. She is a trophy.
I think Courtney Cox is the least explored. She basically just has...
She's a psychopath. She is gasoline looking for a flame.
So I agree. I think that the two choices are Renee Russo or Courtney Cox. I think Renee Russo can easily win that.
Okay.
Who's your favorite character?
I like Linda Hamilton. I like her.
Okay. I like Jackie, good old cement head.
What?
Because he just keeps saying touchdowns. We need but I feel like in corporate America, there's always someone who's seemingly a nice person and has a slogan, or we need to get home runs, we need to get touchdowns, we need to put it across the goal line. But it's to me it's totally believable. To me it's if you've worked in corporate America, you've met someone like that. And I just feel like it's a believable character, and he's even though he's rough, I don't know, I kind of like that character. But I also think if they redid the movie today, I think they would explore the Renee Russo character more. I think she would be the executive no matter what. I don't think it would be the presumptive husband gets to be the leader, and I suspect she would have been groomed for leadership, and the movie would have a completely different flavor.
That's a really good point.
Maybe it's ripe for a remake, but since the original didn't make money, I doubt they'll ever do it.
Oh, I highly doubt it. I think what's interesting to me is, again, even in his fantasy, his freedom and success came at a price, which was forever beholden to Renee Russo. Right? Because if that relationship went south, at least until the dad dies, he has the opportunity to crush Larry Burroughs. And so in a weird way, he's even more trapped in that relationship, or can't do anything different, or has to toe that line, and has less freedom than in his, other life. And so now this frames Jackie as, oh, well, what did you do? What balls did you hit? Or what Faustian pacts did you make to have this level of success? And so he's presented as this kind of lovable dope, but maybe, again, he's clearly more complicated and competent than, originally believed.
So two other observations I want to make is I thought there were two interesting character prototypes. The Jim Belushi character, I thought he matched sort of like the classic, like the dumb husband trope. Sort of like
Mm-hmm.
he's not very, introspective. He doesn't really think about anything. He's just kind of going along, almost
Mm-hmm.
Homer Simpson like.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think that the boss, Niles, I guess the intermediate boss,
His
uh, you know,
greed is good vibes.
what's that?
Like Gordon Gecko, greed is
I was gonna,
good.
I was gonna say the boss in Office Space. He's like,
Oh yeah.
"Oh, you're gonna have to come in on Saturday too." But
So yeah, he's kind of a skeezy
yeah,
guy.
but they both have like glasses, sort of like the overpressed shirts.
The American Psycho, slick back
Yes,
hair. Yeah,
yes.
because it's intense and it's very serpentine.
Lundberg in an Office
Yes,
Space.
Lumberg.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure that's of course one you'll probably that's one to talk
I,
like
I,
to
I,
watch.
I think we should add it. Uh,
Yeah.
the uh, the other thing that was
Also, like, hmm, sorry, go
I
on.
was just gonna say one thing I thought was interesting. It was sort of like a little artifact, sort of the way that they were gonna try to buy the company or the takeover. It was gonna be an LBO. It was gonna be a leveraged buyout, which was like a
Hmm.
really big thing in the '80s, and like a lot of
Yes,
companies got taken over that way. So I thought it was interesting that that was sort of, that's a problem. We've seen that just sort of like no one would that's not what you'd find in the drawer. Now, I also thought it was funny how like everything's an analog. He's not breaking into a computer. He's not breaking into a phone. He's breaking into a
breaking into a
desk.
desk.
A desk. So I thought that was funny. And then also, in the penultimate confrontation, in the hero's journey, as you call it, he punches the guy out. So he resorts to physical
Hmm.
violence. Definitely different attitudes now. I mean, now it would be he gets arrested, he calls someone, he gets taken out in cuffs. No way in today's world are they going to have him, do physical assault. So I have a question, and I don't have an answer for this one because I know you'll ask
Okay.
me what my answer is. How how would you make the movie better?
I actually kind of had a similar question, like thinking about the hero's journey, and that this falls in perfectly into those steps of all heroes' journey stories. And there's only a finite number of plots that can exist. What differentiates a good movie from a bad movie? And so, like, it's execution, and it's you know the quality of acting. Like, you think about River Phoenix. He's someone who died early of a drug overdose, but was known as being like especially passionate in his roles. And so, like, clearly level of acting helps you resonate with the character more, like more of an emotional attachment. And maybe just like level of script, like more playful, more interesting. What do you
I
think?
I think the problem is, like if you compare Jim Belushi to Odysseus, like with
Who doesn't?
who doesn't? When you compare that, like with Odysseus, it's a long road. He's I can't remember if it's 7 years or a decade. He gets waylaid, for a huge fragment of his life, and he's in all these, and he's at each step along the way, you're kind of like, is this guy ever going to get home? Is he
Mm-hmm.
ever going to find his way? With this one, you never feel like he's very deep, and you never feel like you just never feel like it's that compelling. It just dips the
Mm-hmm.
toe in.
Yep.
You never jump all the way into the pool. It's just hey, I wanna try this life on for a day, and I know it's gonna go back really quick. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but like again, like with some of the more classic heroes' journey, they're in it. They're in it for a long time, and you're kind of in it with them, and you kind of get
Yes.
vested. I never got vested with the Jim Belushi character. I never was like, oh, I really want to root for him because like either way, you're working at the same factory and basically the same job with basically the same life.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's a really good point. There were never really any stakes for
No.
one. So how can you get invested when you're not rooting for one thing or another? Again, I think the movie is really just about the relationship with the wife, but they threw in the whole I accidentally killed the boss, as again to create a sense of urgency and panic, and he needed to feel pursued and persecuted.
I guess if I were going to make the movie, try to get the movie more interesting, or if I were going to do a remake, I would make it as a remake, but from Niles' perspective.
What?
And I'd have the movie end with the alternate reality being Niles frames Jim Belushi for murder,
What?
and he gets to do the leveraged buyout,
This
and
is
no
like
one
a
ever.
M. Night Shyamalan
Yeah, like
Multiverses,
I mean
bro.
that's what I would do because you'd be like, "There's no way this is gonna happen," and then you're like, "It happened. It's awful," and it's like, and Jim Belushi's like, well, let me go back to the bar. Let me drink this spilled milk. They're like, nope, 20 years to life. Sorry,
No.
you had it all.
Well, let's wrap it up. And I guess you rate the movie, Morgan. What's your review of it? Like just high level, and what do you rate it?
Like objectively or subjectively? Because I think those are two very different things.
Both.
Um, if I'm being honest, and this is gonna sound mean, I think I rated like a 2.5 or a 3 out of 10. It's not
Ooh.
good. It's not objectively good. That being said, like if it comes up on the TV, I'm probably watching it or at least 20 minutes of it just because I remember it's something from your childhood. There's plenty of things from your childhood that you watch even if it's not good because it's familiar. um so yeah, I mean I think it's like a 2.53. I like all the like the cast is actually really good. And I think the concept, as we've seen, like the Spider Verse, like there's you can execute it well. It's just they didn't
Mm-hmm.
execute. I mean, this was clearly sort of a primordial multiverse thing that they just hadn't figured out yet. So
Mm-hmm.
and then they came along and made it cooler and explored more things.
It's also definitely in a genre of movies that I've always really liked, and that's like what if movies, or like not necessarily like alternate reality esque. So you have to think about Run Lola Run. That's an amazing kind of alternate reality movie that has a really cool take on that type of subject.
One thing that just struck me, and it's a note I forgot to write down, but it popped in my head while we were talking. There's a scene that freaked me out when I was rewatching it, and that I had like deja vu freaking me out watching it. And it's the scene. It's like the scene where he and Cindy Joe, it's their night together, and he walks in the bedroom, and there's like 700 candles, and they're all lit. And I remember thinking like, oh my god, what a fire hazard! Like that's a tinderbox. And like I remember even my younger self thinking, "Oh my god, like
That's
someone should put out about 95% of those candles. Like that is
pretty funny.
way too many candles for that room. Because it's just like if a fan turns on, it's just gonna go up.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
And I
That's
can't
pretty
imagine
funny.
someone lighting all those candles. Like if you try to light candles on a birthday cake, they never stay on. And they lit that many candles, really?
All right. Well, that was great. Any other comments before we wrap it up?
Um, I guess one last thing is, and this kind of like puts the contrast, in perspective. But like it's so, and this is Hollywood, but like one, like he doesn't just strike out. He strikes out and falls over and kind of looks a little bit buffoonish.
Yeah.
And in the version where he, hits the home run, it's not just a home run, it's a home run where it smashes the board and there's
Of
sparks
course.
coming down on the other player. And again, in the version where he doesn't, even in his own locker room, when he's walking out, they're like, "Nice job, Burrows." And it's like, come on.
There's some team camaraderie there.
And then I guess lastly, I think it's interesting that in both scenarios, like at least in the two multiverses we're exposed to, either way, he's meeting his future wife at age 15.
Yes. Yeah.
You
That's
know,
very small town again. That's
yeah,
small town. That's small
yeah.
town. That's before dating apps
But
and
but again, that's a lot of pressure too. So I don't know. Again, like I think it's like a good. It's like a book that's not on any bestseller and isn't gonna get any critical acclaim, but it's a fun beach read, and
well, yeah. I like that it makes me ask questions,
yeah.
and I hate when movies don't make me think about life or look at things from a different perspective. Even if it wasn't executed right, I like that it asks questions and demands that of the viewer or asks that of the viewer.
In that vein, the one of the morals or whatever that I thought about thinking applying to this movie. Eventually, I set it down, but I'll just add it as sort of as an aside. Is the unexamined life is not worth living. Which I think
Mm-hmm.
is Socrates. From Plato's Apology or something. I think it's
Something like that.
something like that. I think it's one of those philosophers. But it's the idea that like it's not enough to just live life. It's important to think about it too.
Mm-hmm.
And like, at least the main character here, when he finally took time to think about his life, he was actually pretty happy about it. Like, I think that's good. I think it's good to have reflection. I think it's good to, you know, um, feel good about where you're going and be appreciative. Be appreciative of who you are, what you've accomplished, and what you haven't. And no one's perfect, and that's okay. Oh, one last thing about this movie, and I think this is going to be a theme of all the movies we do from the 80s, 90s, and before. But it's you see the importance of the analog. Like there's no computer. When Larry gets to his office, huge typewriter
Yeah.
on his desk. And like I just laughed, like the first time I saw that. And I'm just like, okay, well, how I mean, like I could probably use a typewriter, but like I wonder how many like what age do you have to be and older to know even how to load paper into a typewriter and to feel comfortable using it. I know I
Oh, I
could.
think we're on the very the bleeding edge
Right.
of that.
But
That
like
right there.
to me that's important, because I think a lot of the and also a little probably one of the reasons this movie maybe might not have resonated. That was right around the time that like factories were kind
Mm-hmm.
of being
Wiped out.
yeah, it's sort of like that's like the
The
small
economy was changing.
yeah, the economy was changing, and that was sort of like going by the wayside. So it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like it was almost like maybe a movie that was made 10 years too late. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered, but it was just interesting because when I was watching it, I was like, yeah, I don't think they would do that. I don't think the big manufacturing would be there.
Yeah, one movie that Jim Belushi's in, and I don't know if you remember this, one of our favorite childhood classics that we quote, I would say it's our most quotable movie, is Trading Places. Jim Belushi is in that movie. He's the guy that gets dressed up in
It's the
the gorilla
gorilla.
costume.
Yeah, I think I did. Like again, like I in the back of my head, I knew that was him because like his voice is so recognizable, and so is the
Mm-hmm.
sort of like
Yeah.
physical gesticulation. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
The drunk guy in the costume. Where's the party?
yeah.
So,
No, the party's just getting started.
yes, yes. Yeah, because he's like, midnight now. Yeah. Calls on the head. It's
Right,
so
and then
great.
is he the guy that? Oh no, it's the agent. They switch the
Yeah,
outfits.
he comes
Okay.
back into the party in his
What?
underwear, and everyone's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, did you have a good
Hey!
time?" And he just gets right back to partying.
Doesn't
Yes,
care that he lost his whole
yes,
costume,
yeah,
his whole
not
outfit.
important at all.
Yeah, not important.
So all roads connect. It's kind of
Yeah,
funny. So,
that's good.
all right. Well, I'm gonna stop recording. This was fun.
Yeah, it
We'll
was great
see what
talking to you.
editing comes out
Yeah,
with, right? All
yeah.
right.
All right.
Bye
Take
bye.
care. Bye.